Hello and welcome to the second episode of The Fix. Thank you for sending your copy in if you've submitted something. We've had a ton of material come in. We're going to try and review at this point everything that we receive. Maybe not in this show, we're probably just going to look at 2 pieces of copy today, but we should get to everything even if it takes us a few weeks. So please do keep sending your copy in, and thank you, as I said, again, if you already have sent your copy in. I've got a few messages about that and a bit of housekeeping that we'll do later in the show. But right now, Glenn, let's get stuck into some copy straight away. So I'm going to share my screen with you. One day I dream that our recording setup will be more professional and easier on my blood pressure. We're not at that point yet. So we'll go for quality content over quality production. Today, so you should be able to see my screen. Today we're going to look at 2 pieces of copy, and there's a theme here. They're both invites. So I thought it was good to kind of look at the copy itself, but then we'll also tease out maybe some insights around how invitational copy works, because I know it's something that loads of people use. It's one of the most common types of copy. So I'll just quickly talk you through the first piece of copy, and then I'll bring us back on screen, and we'll do it like we did in the first show. So there's 2 headlines here. There's a few different options in the copy. So the first one is Reveal Your Worth Seminar, and the second headline is A 2-Day Amazing Journey to Rediscover Yourself. Now, so this is a piece of invite copy for a seminar somewhere in, I think it's in France, it's supposed to be, and it's directed at women are the target audience. So I'll read you a little bit of the copy, though not all of it. Hopefully you can see some of it on the screen. A unique opportunity to stop, change perspective, and reflect on your own happiness. Join us in this life-changing seminar in Annecy, Glenn can tell me how to pronounce that, surrounded by breathtaking nature and a group of women who, just like you, want more from life. The Reveal Your Worth seminar is for you if you feel you're neglecting yourself to prioritize others, you're unhappy with your current work-life situation, you're stressed trying to balance too many things, bloated, struggling to eat healthy and keep your weight down, undervalued at work, frustrated and drained from difficult relationships, disconnected from your body and emotions, lost and lacking motivation, you're losing confidence by the minute, you aren't living your best life. Okay, I'm going to stop reading the copy there, but perhaps we'll bring it back on screen, Glenn, if you have seen something that you think is particularly interesting. So what do we think of that? I'll let you kick this one off. I've got a few thoughts, but I'll let you get started.
I feel like the dynamic here, it will always ultimately come to me first, to be like the bad guy who says it. Hello, everyone. So this is interesting, and straight away, as I've mentioned before, I'm looking at this fresh eyes. Nick just sent me it this morning. I was trying to cheat and have a look, but then desperately I had to run around the house and do something, so I didn't actually get to see. And this is my first reaction to it. My immediate reaction is I got stuck on Amazing Journey. That's just needs to be banned and stopped, and I will be strong and harsh about that criticism. Words like amazing, unique, these are the kind of fundamental things that you need to probably go back and find out find a better word. The reason, so that's the kind of how to fix that, but the reason is they're just cliche words. They're kind of white noise words. What you really want to be focusing on is what are the benefits, the reasons to doing this thing. And that straight away, before I'd even kind of got a chance to note down that reaction, I'm looking at the end results. All of this stuff, and actually the bullets, again, it was like we looked at that in the last episode. What's great about this is that the idea is there, and it's the copywriter knows what they're writing about. There is loads of relatable things here. But what we're missing straight away for me is the end results, the benefit of why would I go on this Reveal Your Worth seminar? Why is it an amazing journey? And then again, with the bullets, I know the copywriter asked about the bullets specifically and featuring them so early. I think it's potentially possible to do so. It depends how this is produced, whether it's online or in a letter form. But I think it's great that you've listed all these relatable problems but then you're not immediately giving a solution. If you look at, there's a great copywriting kind of mystical legend called Gary Bensavenger, I think it is. He has like a website that's like dedicated to bullet points. Like if you thought there was like, you couldn't get too niche, that's niche. Like, but he is like the kind of bullet point expert. So it's worth kind of finding him online. I don't know if he still exists or if he's just a myth, but with all bullets, when you do use them, yes, throw out the relatable kind of problem there, but give the benefit. Just do a little dash and explain how you can do that and tease on for the rest of the copy. So my initial reaction is, it sounds really interesting from like just looking at it cold, like as the working on it with someone to get the copy good. But for the copy itself, if I was coming to this cold, it's just information at the moment. I've been reviewing quite a bit of copy this week, actually, for various different clients. And I've realized one of the big problems that a lot of copywriters seem to go through is just giving out information rather than doing what a copywriter should do and changing that information into story, into narrative, into end results, into benefits and all that kind of stuff. So I think headline, what does it picture for me, what it looks like to reveal my worth, picture what that journey to discovery looks like, that picture what that unique opportunity to stop, change perspective and reflect on your own happiness. What does it look like? These great things, but what do they actually look like for me, the reader? How do you emotionally connect with me? That's my initial thoughts.
Well, it's interesting you use that phrase, emotional connection, because I think it's doing something more than just providing information at the moment. I'm talking specifically about the bullets here. Those are emotional pinch points. It's a slight search for an emotional pinch point. And do you know what? Let's bring it back on screen very quickly because it's interesting. If I can do that, I can. I've succeeded in doing it, I think. Yes. Okay, so these are pinch points, okay? You're searching for the part, the open nerve almost in your reader. I know that sounds a little bit wrong, but you're neglecting yourself to prioritize others. You're unhappy with your current work-life situation. You're stressed, trying to balance too many things, bloated, struggling to eat healthy and keep your weight down. I won't go through them all, and I'm going to bring myself back. But, those are, I think there's too many, and I think it could be done quicker. I think if you're going to use bullets, you want them to be benefit driven. So they need to either provide a solution. So for instance, you're worried about your work-life balance is, it's in the right direction. But if it was said, for instance, a simple 2-minute exercise you can do every day to keep your work-life balance in check, for instance, I've made that up. But like that turns it from a piece of information or an emotional pain point into an emotional pain point with a solution. So that's, I think, what Glenn was talking about. In your bullet copy, you want to be doing that. However, those bullets themselves are reaching out at the reader, and they're searching for where the reader feels something. And that's exactly the right thing to do. I think I would rather say that in the first line of my promotion.
I was just going to say, I think what if you actually, functionally just lead with the bullet points to begin with, but actually, as you say, Nick, there's too many, probably, it's too much information, but I feel as though, what if you had a headline that maybe brought those three, out of those problems that you're identifying in the copy there, what are the three most highest priority problems that the most of your intended readers will relate to? Get them into a headline that actually grabs the reader emotionally, and then use the payoff as, well, this is why you need to come to the seminar. Then the rest of the bullet points you can then feed off and drop into before you get into the kind of, dear reader, we want to make sure you're living your best life. Here's how we're going to do it, kind of thing. So I feel as though, yeah, you're right. They are good. As you were reading it out, that started bringing me back in. I was noting and I was taken away by amazing journey and unique and stuff. But then as you were talking, they brought me back in straight away. So I think you want to bring that stuff to the top.
Let's loosely try and workshop it. Now, I don't know if this would be a headline or maybe an opening line, but you could probably say something like, if you feel like your work-life balance is never in order, you're eating the wrong things, and you're just not putting yourself first. I've just chosen 3 off the top of my head. You could choose better ones. Then I'd like to invite you to join me in the beautiful French countryside. I don't know where Annecy is. If it's in the mountains, I would say mountains. You know,
in a car park. It's a car park.
I'd like you to join me on a roundabout in Milton Keynes for a frank discussion about your life. But joking aside, well, by the way, I would put the mountains in because it would put a picture in my head rather than, I don't know where the place is, but if join me in the rolling French countryside surrounded by vineyards and whatever, we can come back to that. But that structure, if this is you, then please join me, because I think that's a powerful, it's an if then, which we often use in copy. If X, then Y. If you want to make lots of money this year, then listen to the next thing that I say, for instance, as an if then. But by doing that, we would pack that punch quicker. We talk to our reader about their emotional pain points. And that word invite, you know, this is a piece of invitational copy. I'd say I would, you know, then I'd like to invite you to join me. Who's the letter from? That's missing. You know, bring a little bit of the person. Join me, Nick O'Connor, to talk about how, and then you have to express your benefit in a slightly more specific fashion. But because you're bringing the emotional context right up, the claim is obviously a payoff, isn't it? Then I'd like to invite you to join me to solve those problems effectively. That would actually, in 2 lines of copy, maybe that is a headline, you know, an if then, you know, that kind of does everything that you're doing in that first page. Bang. Then, dear reader, I would probably go straight in with who it's from, possibly. And in a perfect world, I would try and do a before and after story. You know, once upon a time, I was just like you, is the I was stressed, I was this, I was that, and then I found a way of, and then you tell the story of how their life is now. Because, so you immediately go from claim, so we talk to our reader about their problems, we make a claim about how we can solve them, we introduce who we are, we tell them a story about ourselves that kind of underlines. A lot of that copy is in there in the rest of the promotion, by the way, but that's a little bit less bullety, a little bit more story driven. It's more direct, gets us, I don't know, we're half a page of copy in, we've done a lot more, and then maybe we can bring some bullets in. I think that's how I would go about that piece of copy.
Yeah, definitely. It's literally, as you said that, I was just scrolling down. There is, as I say, there's some, as you point out, Nick, there's some really good copy here, and it's so much further than a lot of copy that you would see out there, and it's got a nice tone of voice to it, and there's good stuff. It's not just fluffy. The person knows what they're talking about. They know their subject. But straight away, I was just scrolling down, and my criticism of it is it is very lots of questions, it's trying to relate to that reader in a kind of checklist way. There's too much of that early on. I would just trust that you do know what you're talking about. Trust that the people will relate to this more if they see that you, the writer, the author of this piece, whoever it's coming from, has been through this process. I think it's a very personal thing. Understanding your worth and your self-esteem and all this kind of stuff. It's a very personal thing anyway, just is. But everybody has these feelings. But to see someone go through that, so I think if you did that kind of work that we've just been talking about in the headline, but then get that emotional story and as you say, a great way to kind of really softly put in credibility in that kind of I've done this. And I think it was last week we were on about the word already being a good thing, but yeah. It's just that already I've been through this. I know how you feel. I felt it myself. There's nothing wrong with you. It's normal to feel like this. Getting over all those objections of like fear and what have you, and going, oh, actually, I connect with this person. Then when you start hitting all the good copy points later on and the content of what the seminar is going to be, it's just that then becomes, all right, yeah, this makes sense. Something I was talking about this week with someone else, but I think it's relevant here because I think mine and your reaction, Nick, is quite similar in that when you're writing this is a relatively long piece of copy, about 3,000 words so far. The first third, maybe the first quarter, is ultimately selling you the idea. and it's getting, that's the irrational emotional connection. Like yeah, that sounds really good, I'm really into that. After that, it's just kind of giving that person the rational reasons as to why they've made that emotional and irrational decision. So at the moment, we've got that kind of logic stuff all at the top. There's not the emotional, oh wow, yeah, I want to feel like that, I want to be there, I want to be in that thing. So I'm not fully sold on the idea before you're telling me all the details. And it's like, oh no, I don't want to know the details. I just want to picture myself at peace in a car park in Milton Keynes, or a mountain in France, or wherever the location might be.
Split test that.
We're going to look at this afterwards and be like, it's not even in France. What's going on? But yeah, you want that picture first, that like emotional, like, God, I just need this. But I'm not being given the opportunity to get that because it's that information overload. So just in a long piece of copy like that, to be honest with you, in a short piece of copy, is kind of the same. What is the key emotional hook? And that's why you talk about that for the first little bit. Then the rest of it comes. One of my mentors used to always say to me, like, it just straight away, you've not sold me yet. And it was such vague advice, and I was like, I want to punch you, you're annoying me. But it was like, no, I'm not sold on it. So I'm giving all this information, but I'm not sold on the idea. Here, I'm not sold on the idea itself before you're giving me all the information. So I think it's really close, and I think you've got the stuff there, and it's kind of interesting. I'm intrigued by it, and I'm like, oh, this sounds like a good thing.
Fantastic benefit, isn't it? Actually, it's you know, assuming that the product is going to deliver on the claims that we're making, which, I mean, just rule one of of being copywriters, don't sell crap products. So I'm going to assume that it is a fantastic product. What an amazing benefit! What an amazing benefit to write about. I mean, I'm not a woman, and therefore I'm not the target market. But so I have 2 young children. It's raining outside right now. They both have got snotty noses. My wife's had to take them out on their bikes. She, when I read a piece of copy like this, I think about her. I think about all of the competing demands on her time and all of the people she has to put before herself in her life before she can even start to think about herself. Like that is as an emotional pain point, that's a very, very rich. You've got to be careful with it. You can't promise somebody like that things that you can't deliver on. But everybody wants to be able to get that balance in their life, right, and put themselves first without feeling like they're putting other people down in the hierarchy and all those things. That is such a rich vein to work with, and if you can find a way of talking about it in a compelling way, this is a piece of copy that will really, really work. And I think, like I would reiterate what you said, it's going in the right direction. It's definitely talking to the right people. It's definitely hitting on the right problems. But we probably have to work a bit harder to put benefits into there. So one criticism I would have, things like how you can live your best life. I think you have to give more specific benefits. I think you can give a vague problem, work-life balance, for instance. Well, we'll talk to you about, or such and such. I know that there's guests talking at this event because I read down in the copy. Such and such person who is credible in this way will talk to you about how she managed to run a successful search engine company and spend 8 hours a day with her children, whatever, whatever the thing is. Put some specifics into that, into those benefits, and talk about these are the things, these are the tools, these are the answers to your problems, just in a slightly more specific way. So I don't know what my best life is. I probably know how it might feel like everybody I know and love is getting what they need from me, but I feel like I'm getting something for myself as well. For instance, I would feel less overwhelmed, more in control, more organized, less frazzled. I would sleep better. I would smile more. This is what my best life looks like. Well, let's go in that direction with the copy then, rather than ask me to do that work, where I just say, this is your best life. So, I mean, I think maybe we should stop talking about that piece of copy now, because otherwise I can see you're going to go. I'm just going to
say one more thing. There's actually loads I could say, but I'll say one more thing because it's just a kind of quite interesting universal thing. And actually they tie, so I'll get them in together. There's a little section here that says, but what does it mean to live your best life, ? And then there's a little statement, and then there's there's so many questions. It's like, but how do you do this? How many people is your life thing? Now, what I'm reading there slightly is, and it starts with like saying it's not a trendy hashtag on Instagram and everything, which I like, but I think it might be too early to get that kind of objection in. But it feels like a little bit like they don't trust in the value of the product. And that might be way off the mark, but it's just the way that there's all these questions and you're trying so desperately to connect in this question way. I think you need to trust, and this goes to my bigger point, and I think it's worth saying because I think it will become thematic throughout the fix generally, but it feels like there's a certain amount of fear about writing the story, about telling the story, about telling a narrative, that you're almost overloading it with like potential questions and relatable things and attempts at benefits, when really it just needs a really good story and it needs to be told. But then I think the copywriter or general or the business behind it might be like, oh, people don't read copy and stories and all this stuff. People don't read bad copy. People will always read good stories. There's a reason, like Harry. I always used to use Harry Potter as an example. I hate Harry Potter, but there are undeniably, it's a really popular book and it's really long. Like people keep reading that stuff. I'm going to change it to Carl Ove Knausgaard, who wrote My Struggle, which is ridiculously long. And it is a bestseller. People will read stuff that they're engaged with and think. And it just feels here like, I think I would say to the copywriter, commit to the fact that you've got a really good product. You know who your audience is. Now tell the story. Don't worry about trying to write copy. There's too much copy in this thing. Whereas actually, if you just tell a story and be really authentic, which is kind of what this seminar feels to be about, really. It's about living your own life and being authentic about it. Just tell the story, and I think you'll immediately kind of think. It reminds me of a thing where you'd say, just rewrite it. And you go, get lost, I'm not just rewriting. But I think just put that copy to the side for a minute and just write a story about like your own experience of this. And I think somewhere there you'll just have everything you need.
And then all of that other copy can go around it in lots of ways.
Yeah.
By the way, if you were trying to tell that story, and I promise we'll wrap up on this piece of copy after that, but one way of quickly telling a story in a really, really compelling fashion that goes directly at the reader is to, I'll tell you the story as a copywriter, okay, because it's easy. I can tell it easier, but this is applicable to anyone. You find somebody who couldn't write copy and then found a way of writing copy successfully, okay? That's your success story. So in this case, it would be somebody whose work-life balance was all off and has now fixed it. Find that story. That's the story that shows that this works, right? But tell that story in the second person. So you feel like this, you can't, you have all of these ideas, but you can't write them down and they just don't work on the page when you put them, and you feel like you're tearing your hair out and there's no one you can talk to, but then you find a way around it and And then at the end of it, just pay that off by saying, well, that was me 2 years ago. I just lived. So you tell somebody else's story as if it's the reader, and then you reverse it out and bring the author of that story. Or if not the author, that was copywriter X, who's a testimonial of mine, or whatever you might do. So there's just a way of bringing that. I mean, and a story, by the way, can be kind of 8 or 9 lines. You can tell it very succinctly. We're not talking about a long story. If we're concise with our language, we can pack a lot of punch into a very short period of time. Very short space. And then I think you're going to be able to make that piece of copy work. However, I think we should move on. As with everybody, thank you for sending that copy in. So the email address to submit your copy to is feedback@longcopymasterclass.com. Now we've had a ton of stuff coming in. I did have a couple of questions from people. One of which was, well, if we share our copy with you, isn't that just going to put it out there into the marketplace, and that that's bad for our business because we're an agency or what have you? I take that point. It's a good point. Now, if you've got a problem you want us to workshop, you might not have to submit the copy itself, or you could submit the copy but ask us not to share it. So you can say, my problem is I'm trying to pitch an idea about I'm trying to pitch a new novel. Well, it's one that's too close to home for you, Glenn. Like, I'm trying to pitch my novel. This is what the story is. this is who it's aimed at, blah, 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 blah. Here's the text. We might not share the text, but we can workshop the problem, say, here's how we might talk about that. So it kind of depends. You kind of have to just submit the copy to us and tell us what you do and don't want us to share, or just write the challenge out. Our problem is we're trying to sell rubber ducks into the Russian market, and we just can't think of a way of doing it. Like, we could work with that. Well, we couldn't work with that problem. Please don't send that in. But we can try and work with the challenge one step removed from the copy if you don't want to share the copy itself. In general, we'll do as you ask. So if you ask us not to share the copy, not to share your name or whatever it might be, we won't. If you don't explicitly tell us not to, we'll probably put the copy on screen, as we have done, because that's how some people want to receive feedback. Glenn?
I would also say on that, because it reminds me of myself, like just a general principle. This might not be the question that was asked, but when you don't want to share copy with people because you think it's such a good idea and people are going to take it, that's fine. It must be a great idea. You certainly don't need us to look at it. I'm being a little bit twee there. But what I learned early on is that you've got to back yourself as a copywriter to create the ideas and always create a new idea. So I've always been very liberal with ideas, and I will just give my ideas away, because I back myself that if someone else steals it or imitates it, they're screwed, because next time they don't know how to do another different idea, and I back myself to have fresh ideas. It's not really, it's just slightly related to that idea. But what I would say is you kind of be open with your ideas generally as a copywriter, because don't get me wrong, I've got ideas where I'm like, oh no, I'm not telling anyone these are going to be my like good ones. Usually they're not, but like generally talk about ideas, because you will find the best way to deal with it, and imitation really does reveal itself eventually. But it's a bit philosophical, but just as a general point, I think it's worth raising that.
Yeah, it's a very good point. But broader point being, we'll try and work within the confines that you give us. You know, we're not here, we're here to just talk about copy and try and help. So that email address, feedback@longcopymasterclass.com. Do send copy in. You know, we're only as good as the copy we have to review. We're going to do as many of these as we can, as often as we can. We're both terribly disorganized and write tons of copy. Glenn's writing a novel. I'm not. But we're going to try and fit in as many as we can. The more copy we have to review, the more we'll be able to help people. One way you can help us, if you so choose, is just to share news of this show with other people that you think might like it. So you can just copy and paste try and set up a Facebook page and things like that. Again, disorganized. But if you think what we're doing is any good and you know somebody who would like it, share it with them. We would appreciate that. That's the admin side over. Let's take another look. Well, let's take a look at our next piece of copy. Right, I'm going to share my screen again. Isn't this fantastic? Right. Glenn, can you see this piece of copy on the screen? Okay, so it's another piece of invitational copy. We'll begin with the club logo. So it's obviously, I think it's for a business club. That's what we're selling, an invitation to this. Okay, I don't want to belong to any club that would have me as a member. Dear prospect, I hope you don't agree with Groucho Marx, because we'd like to invite your business to join our club. Founded in 1950, we're the longest established business club in Cambridge. Not that longevity alone is a guarantee of quality. Here are some other reasons why I think you'll find our club of interest. The perfect place to impress important clients and contacts. We meet monthly for lunch in the old hall at Queen's College. Entering the college from Silver Street, you walk over the mathematical bridge and into the old kitchens, where members and their guests gather over drinks. Once the gong sounds, we adjourn to the dining hall for a three-course lunch. The original college dining hall dates from 1448 and retains many historic features. I'm just going to skip ahead and quickly give some of the other benefits. So great after lunch speakers, relaxed, friendly, informal networking with quality contacts. We don't do formal introductions, press people to bring referrals, or expect them to recruit new members. We're just sensible, grown-up business people mixing informally over lunch and drinks. Perfect place for your senior team or new staff to expand their network within the Cambridge business community. Now, I've kind of read that out in a slightly wonky fashion, but I think I kind of got the point across. So another piece of invitational copy, another piece of copy that has a relatively clear target audience in mind. I don't think Glenn would dispute that. And a fairly clear sense of what the product itself is. How do we make it better? Glenn? You know what? I'm happy to do them in reverse. Just look back. I don't care what you think if we do it that way.
Yeah, no, I know. It's fine. A couple of things straight away get me. Number one, how do I do? So number one, sounds interesting. So I'll start with the positive. The whole thing sounds like, oh wow, like that's cool. Yeah, get me in there. I am a typical man who loves the ideas of like members clubs and all that kind of stuff. I've just got that. I'm a little boy from Grimsby, and like when I first moved to London, one of our old mentors took me to this crazy members club, and it was just like, what is this place? There's like Rory Sutherland asleep on a chair or something in the corner, like with a cigar in his ear and all this kind of stuff and what have you. So love the idea of it, and it sounds really interesting. The networking thing, great. So again, you've got the thing to work with. Secondly, I can't help but smile and laugh because the Groucho Marx quote, which is paraphrased in the opening to Annie Hall by Woody Allen, is like one of my favorite quotes ever. I love that quote. I love the idea of it, and I love Groucho Marx. So if you've not read Groucho Marx letters, I haven't got it usually to think, go and do so. As a copywriter, it is one of the most brilliant, but it's really funny for a start, but his use of language and the way he takes you one direction, then undercuts it and moves it around is just really, really good. And obviously he's an intelligent man. I don't want to belong to any club that wouldn't have me as a member, that would have me as a member. However, and I will credit John Ford with this, great copywriter, he once went through a piece of my copy and went, this, what you've written here is brilliant, you need to get rid of it. And I was like, you get, because I knew that it was a good thing, but it just wasn't strong for the letter itself, for the writer, the copy it was saying. And I think here, the writer probably loves that quote the same as I do, loves the idea of the Groucho Marx thing. It is a great thing, especially when clubs, and it seems to tie in so well with the idea of this club, but it's almost too clever. And it's distracting me from the thing. What actually happens is that I read that, I think, oh, that's clever, possibly. So if I'm fresh to this, if I didn't know that quote, I'd be like, all right, that's clever. Oh, I don't agree with Groucho Marx because we'd like to do. I'm just already undermining the whole thing. The copy needs to be confident, and you already need to believe as the writer when you start writing that the sale has happened. Like copy ultimately is just saying, oh, you're buying this. I'm just telling you that why you're buying it, kind of thing. And by having that quote there, by having that kind of clever little joke about, oh, I hope you disagree with Groucho Marx, it's undermining it for me. So I think you should get rid of that. If you actually came in saying we meet monthly for lunch in the old Queen's Hall, entering there, if you turn that into second person and told the story of there you are walking through the old Queen's over the mathematical bridge, which does just break my mind because it just sounds like some kind of Darren Aronofsky film where it's like this mathematical bridge that's floating. I don't really know what it is.
It's visual. It's visual, isn't it?
It is visual, yeah. If you told that story straight away, I'd be much more into it. So that was my initial thing. And then one minor thing I will say, Dare XYZ, you'll think I'm strange for this, but I would always, I know it will be replaced maybe with the actual name of the reader, but for a copywriter, again, it's a weird tip. It's one of those that I've just always done myself, and I can only, and had success, so I can only tell you what works for me. Always at least put reader, but like try and write maybe just a way of describing who your reader is. If you write XYZ, you are thereby kind of breaking the suspension of disbelief that you are writing to someone, because XYZ doesn't exist. Always just a really subtle thing. Say, dear reader, dear aspiring club member, just get that reader in your mind, because it will just subtly help you, and it kind of takes away from the fact that you're writing a piece of copy. You should be having a conversation, and if you've got XYZ at the top, you're not having a conversation, you are doing a piece of copy. So just a weird little quirk, but I think it does help. But yeah, so I would say get lovely open and like, yeah, brilliant reference, well read, like bringing that into the thing and doing the stuff that you should be doing, but unfortunately it's a kind of kill your darlings situation where I don't think it helps the letter itself. I think the story and the stuff there, it reminds me of the old Economist letter of two men who go to the same school or something, and one of them becomes successful and the other doesn't, kind of thing.
It's that Wall Street Journal.
Is it Wall Street Journal? Yes, sorry. It's got that potential written all over it for me.
I think there's two. I would agree that the quote is probably a little bit too clever. So I think there's two ways you could go with this. Three, perhaps, because your dog clearly has no idea.
Pablo is back.
So test number one, I would use the word invite in the first sentence because it's an invite. You know, that's the thread in this episode, which is let's invite people to do things. So I would always do an invitational version of an invite promo. So therefore I would do something like, I'd like to invite you to join some of Cambridge's top business people for a 3-course lunch in the beautiful old hall at Cambridge, whatever some of the details were. You know, just try and pack it all into a sentence. A relatively short one, but you know, I'd like to invite you and some other incredible people, aka you are incredible. You know, you'll be joining the luminaries of the Cambridge Society. Of course, we wouldn't invite you unless we wanted you to be a part of this. Then I would give some details, and then I would get into some of the copy. So that would be the direct invitational way, and it places a premium on the reader and the reader's status. The fact that we're not inviting everybody, it's almost like the American Express thing. Frankly, I'm not inviting everybody to be part of this club, but I'm inviting you because however you want to talk about that. This is a perfect way to use the kind of the velvet cord as a way of bringing the reader into that elite group. There's a high value, high status group of people, and we want you to have dinner with us because we think you have something to add. So you can flatter the reader somewhat there. That's the value of the network. That would be the first test I would do. The second test I would do would be to just explore, this would be a higher risk one, just explore the value of a network. So can you tell a story about a business that was only founded because two people found themselves in the same room at the same time? Could be any time, you know, it could be, I don't know, I'm thinking about Cambridge and it talked about Isaac Newton, and I'm pretty sure he calculated the arc of Halley's Comet because, well, it's called Halley's Comet, but I'm sure there's some story about they were in the same place at the same time, and Newton said, oh, I've calculated this, and Halley said, well, how have you done that? Anyway, that's a chance encounter that changed history. That's a really rich idea too. I wouldn't use that story, by the way, but I would try and I was working on something this week and I found that turned out Henry Ford and Thomas Edison were neighbors, and they tried to build an electric car together and it didn't work out. I was working on an electric vehicles thing, but it's a cool little story, right? Kind of gets you into the world you want to be in. Now, I'm sure there's a story you could pull out here, and you could tell that story and say, this is the value of a network. Now, I'd like to invite you to be part of an elite network right here in Cambridge, where the smartest people, the best business people, the best traders, best connected people, however you phrase all those things, gather together once a month to talk about the world. Who knows what the next thing will be? I'm hashing it out loosely, but I think there's something in that. I would write the invitational one first, then I'd have to go away and do a lot of research and reading to find the right story to tell. But if you tell the right story about connections and networks, you elevate this from an invitation to a chance to be part of history. You know, that's literally what you're talking about, to be part of a special group of people who throughout history have joined together, and incredible sparks have, you know, flown off in the collision of ideas and people. You know, really elevate it to that level, because I think, you know, it could be shit. That's why I would write the invite one, but I would explore that angle too, because if you get that one right, no one will beat your control. If you find the right story, you will kill it. So there's a good piece of copy to work on that. And yeah, a broader point is that if you can try to elevate, you know, okay, if we were bringing together the threads of this episode, we talked about work-life balance, but how we can talk about living our best lives. We're talking about networks, but what networks really mean. We want to try and elevate our benefits and our ideas to that, you know, rarefied air, because it's richer, it's more fun to write about. And if you get it right, you're selling something more than what you're selling. You're no longer selling a gentleman's club. You're no longer selling a retreat. You're selling a secret about the way the world works and the way your life can be. That's the secret to writing great copy, right? To get it to that level.
And
I don't
on
have to
that,
write it, so.
on that, well, it's funny you say that, and I thought, I was going to say something and it doesn't tie in, but I think it actually does. And yeah, as thematic, so I picked up a line here. It says, here are some of the other reasons why I think you'll find our club of interest. Like, that makes me almost want to backhand slap the writer, because it's like, come on, like, what do you mean? Here are some other reasons you might find it of interest. Copy needs to be confident. And as I said earlier on, it needs to sell. But what you're talking about, Nick, and explained very well there, is you need to get in your, so this is, how do you do that? How do you get to that point where it feels like it's this great meeting of mind, like this, it's a bigger thing, it's changing your life, it's reclaiming your self-esteem and all this kind of stuff. How do you get there as the writer, as the copywriter, sat in an office doing this thing? It's not necessarily your product, you might be just like inherited the job or whatever. How do you do that? And I was thinking about this with some other mentees I was working with. I believe it comes back, it's all before writing. Again, it's before you've even written a word. It's all about mindset of you, the writer. And I think what you need to do with this is get into that mindset of, right, why is this? Do the research, understand that this is a brilliant thing. You have to convince yourself first and go, wow, this is actually really exciting. Like, both of us in this call have got, oh yeah, this is really good. Like, we're convincing ourselves almost of the product before we've even got to the copy itself. And both of these examples have the product that you can easily convince yourself of. So that's great, because some products are like, this is a bent spoon, how the hell do I get excited about this?
Yeah.
There is a way to do that, but that's like advanced copyright. But how do you get excited about it before you even write? Because then when you come to the page and you are now excited about it and you're like, oh my God, like, this is going to happen, we're doing this, you will get where you have to breathlessly write this stuff and get it down on the paper. Therefore, you haven't got time to write, here are some of the reasons why you might do this. So I always see those lines as a clue to, I firmly believe that the writer, though they have a grasp of it, haven't fully got to themselves yet the research, the idea behind why, the fundamental reason why you want to be a part of this club. You need to work that out, because then when you've got that, you just need to tell it. Copywriting isn't that hard. The writing bit isn't. It's always cliche, number one. It's always the idea. It's the bit before, getting yourself convinced about it and then speaking about it and writing about it. You can all write. Everybody watching this now can write, and they're all able to get the words out. It might take a bit of editing to get them finessed and knock them down or whatever. But what a real copywriter, where your real value will lie for clients, is being able to express those ideas in an excited way. And that comes somewhere before the writing. It's somewhere, it sounds like an old friend of ours, but it's somewhere like magic in there. It's like, it's a bit kind of...
you have to ask yourself, Glenn, you have to ask yourself, you know, what am I really selling? Really? Yeah. And it shouldn't be the product. The answer isn't, oh, a subscription or a gentleman's club. Not a gentleman's club, it's a business club. Gentleman's club is something completely different.
Yeah.
What am I really?
Yeah. So I would just think about that, because I think, again, you've got so much good stuff here. We are hitting the same notes. It's story. You commit to stories, commit to narratives. That is what will sell people. That's why everybody watches television, because it's just narratives and stories kind of thing. There's a reason for that. People follow stories. We are storytellers. That's how humans work. It's like, that's like base, like fundamental thing. So commit to that. People don't read bad stories, sure, and that bad copy, but like, you've got the stuff here in this piece of copy. I'm aware of time, Nick, I'm aware of themes. We want to try and get like themes in the fix a little bit, so each episode is that, and this kind of goes off. But I couldn't help but notice the business membership costs, just 150 per annum, lunches are £32 per head. We're off, and it's like there's just a very kind of weird drop in of cost in this letter. It's a bit of a much bigger thing than I think we should discuss here.
Perhaps we should come back to.
We'll come back to cost generally. Yeah.
Well, we've gone in.
I would just look at that for the writer. Don't, like, yes, there's advantage in just going, here's the cost, fact, nice one, straight away, like bullet point things to try. do you need to put the cost in this? Because are they coming to you first? Get them wanting it before they find out the cost. If it is, get a comparison in there. Do they really truly understand the value of this? At the moment, you're just kind of dropping it there. And then B, it is just a bit kind of like, here's the cost, how to join us, like even get it in earlier if that's the case. But just be a little aware of that. This particular, I wanted to go away with full advice, but I think we'll bring together an episode maybe just on dealing with cost and value at some point in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's largely going to be driven by the copy that we receive. You know, I picked these two out because they were invitational. I think we'll do one on offers and we'll do one on value, and we'll get more and more niche. And just by way of sign off, you know, write in and tell us about what you want to hear us talk about. If you don't want us to review copy, or you haven't written something that you want reviewing, then tell us about yourself, or tell us about what you would find useful, because we can pitch these shows. You know, I sense our audience is kind of split between, you know, budding, aspiring writers or very experienced writers who just want to keep improving, and then business owners or people working on that side of things. But I mean, we can pitch different episodes for different groups of that audience, but you kind of have to tell us, and we'll try to do something on, I don't know, writing website copy for your small business, or starting out as a freelancer, or whatever. Anyway, you write in. The more we know about you, the better we can provide help and advice and some form of forum to discuss some of these ideas. We've gone on long enough, Glenn, so I'm going to sign off there. Thank you very much to both writers who wrote in. I hope that we gave you something useful, and I hope for the wider group that we talked about interesting enough themes that maybe triggered an idea or two for you. I'd love to see some rewritten drafts of any of the copy that we reviewed. I know that one person from the first episode has already rewritten the copy that he's done because he sent it to me, and he was pleased with where he went, and it was nice to see it. It's nice to see it fixed up. So the email you need is feedback@longcopymasterclass.com. These shows will go out every Monday. If we start producing too many, that we'll figure something else out. But for now, it'll be every Monday. Each show drops at 10 a.m. wherever you are, I'm told. So it depends. Doesn't matter what time zone you're in. You'll get it at 10 a.m. apparently. The wonders of the internet. Thank you very much for joining us. Cheers, Glenn, and we'll speak to you all again next Monday. Goodbye.